It started with a phone that wouldn't stop glowing. 1:17 a.m. Michael wasn't asleep. He hadn't been sleeping well for weeks. The apartment was dark except for the faint streetlight leaking through the curtains and the soft blue light flickering on the nightstand. Olivia was beside him, breathing slowly, peacefully, like nothing in the world was wrong. The phone buzzed again. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to be heard in the silence. Michael stared at the ceiling. He told himself to ignore it, but love has a strange way of sharpening your instincts when something is slipping away. The screen lit up one more time. A name appeared. Ryan. Michael didn't move at first. His chest tightened, but not in the way people describe heartbreak. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet, controlled, dangerous. He slowly reached for the phone, careful not to wake her. His fingers hovered over the screen as if touching it would confirm something he wasn't ready to know. He had seen that name before. Late-night messages, quickly turned screens, bathroom calls that lasted a little too long. He had chosen not to ask, because asking makes things real, and Michael wasn't sure he was ready for real. He turned his head and looked at Olivia's sleeping face. This was the woman who once promised she would never lie to him, the woman who said they were different, better than other couples. The phone buzzed again, and this time, it wasn't just a notification. It was a decision. Because if Michael picked it up, everything would change. 2 years earlier, nothing felt fragile. They met on a warm Friday night at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. The restaurant was crowded, loud, filled with overlapping conversations and clinking glasses. Michael hadn't even wanted to go. He almost stayed home. He would later wonder what his life would look like if he had. Olivia was seated across the long table, passionately arguing about the ending of a movie. She spoke with her hands, her eyes alive with conviction. Michael didn't even care about the movie. He was watching her. There was something magnetic about the way she defended her opinions, fearless, unapologetic. At one point, she caught him staring. "You disagree?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Michael smiled. "No, I just think you're very committed to being right." The table laughed. She tried not to smile, but she did. And that small exchange, playful, harmless, shifted something invisible between them. Later that night, while others danced and drank, they found themselves sitting outside on the curb, sharing stories neither of them usually told strangers. She told him about her parents' marriage, how it ended quietly, painfully, without closure. He told her about his father leaving when he was 12, and how he swore he would never become a man who walked away. They didn't flirt aggressively. They didn't rush. They connected. In the days that followed, their conversations continued, first through text, then through long phone calls that stretched past midnight. They talked about childhood dreams, about insecurities, about the kind of love they believed in. They both said the same thing, almost at the same time. "I don't want something temporary." That was the foundation. Not attraction, not convenience, but intention. When Michael asked her out officially a week later, she said yes without hesitation. And from the very beginning, they weren't just dating, they were building. They believed they were different, smarter, more aware. They believed love, when handled carefully, didn't have to break. What neither of them understood was that love doesn't fall apart all at once. It erodes quietly. And sometimes the strongest beginnings hide the deepest fractures. In the beginning, love felt effortless, not forced, not complicated, just natural. Michael and Olivia slipped into each other's lives like they had always belonged there. Morning texts turned into morning coffee together. Quick dinners turned into long evenings on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. He learned how she liked her tea. No sugar, just a splash of milk. She learned that he pretended not to care about birthdays, but secretly loved thoughtful surprises. They memorized each other. The way she scrunched her nose when she laughed too hard. The way he went quiet whenever something was bothering him. It felt safe. That was the word Olivia used most. "Being with you feels safe," she once whispered as they lay tangled in dim bedroom light. Michael held on to that sentence like a promise. They took midnight walks through quiet streets, hands intertwined, planning futures that felt guaranteed. They talked about a small house with large windows, about 2 children, maybe 3, about breaking generational patterns and becoming the kind of couple people admired. They weren't perfect. They disagreed about little things, what movie to watch, whose turn it was to cook, but their arguments ended in laughter or apology. There was never cruelty, never distance. When Michael proposed 18 months later, it wasn't extravagant. No flash mobs, no cameras, just a quiet evening on their balcony, city lights flickering below them. "I don't want a perfect life," he told her, voice steady but eyes nervous. "I just want it with you." Olivia didn't let him finish. She said yes through tears. Their friends called them balanced, mature, stable. They were the couple people pointed to and said, "That's how it should be." And maybe that was the problem. Because when love feels that secure, you stop guarding it. You stop noticing the subtle shifts, the delayed replies, the distracted glances, the slow fading of effort. The golden phase felt endless, until one day, without warning, it wasn't. And neither of them realized that something fragile had already begun to crack. It didn't start with a fight. There was no shouting, no broken objects, no slamming doors. It started quietly, almost imperceptibly. Olivia stopped laughing at his jokes like she used to. She stopped reaching for his hand when they walked down familiar streets. She stopped asking how his day had been. Michael noticed, of course, but he told himself it was normal. Stress at work, long hours, life getting in the way. He chose patience over suspicion, because that's what love asks of you. Then came the small signs. Late-night phone calls she took in the bathroom. Screens turned away when he walked into the room. Text messages deleted too quickly for him to read. He could feel it before he could name it. Distance. Michael tried to bridge it. "Everything okay?" he asked casually one evening, noticing her quiet mood. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice didn't match the words. Her eyes avoided his. Her hands fidgeted with the edge of the table, and that was enough. Love has a way of making you hope against what your instincts are screaming. He kept telling himself, maybe it's nothing. Maybe he's overthinking. Maybe it's just a rough week. But the truth has a way of rising to the surface. One night, while she slept, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. He didn't mean to look. He really didn't. But the name on the screen stopped him cold. Ryan. Michael's chest tightened. Not in a panic, but in that slow, sinking feeling that something you've believed in for months, years, is quietly unraveling. He stared at Olivia's sleeping face, peaceful, innocent, unaware. He told himself to turn away, to pretend he hadn't seen it, but something inside him knew that pretending would change nothing, because by the next morning, everything would feel different. And Michael had no idea just how much his world was about to tilt. "Who is Ryan?" he whispered to himself, heart pounding, even though she wasn't awake to answer. The first crack had appeared, and it was only going to get wider. The days that followed were unbearable. Michael watched Olivia move through their shared apartment with a kind of nervous energy he had never seen before. Small things he used to find endearing now made him uneasy. The way she laughed quietly at a message, the way her phone stayed face down on the table, the sudden work emergencies that kept her at the office late into the night. He wanted to ask, He wanted to confront her, but he didn't, because love makes you negotiate with your own instincts. So he watched, silently, pretending everything was normal while suspicion burrowed deeper with every passing hour. Then, one evening, she left her laptop open on the dining table. He hadn't planned to look, but curiosity clawed at him. A message popped up. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't casual. It was intimate. "I miss how you feel next to me." Michael's heart didn't explode. It sank, slowly, unbearably. He sat there, frozen, staring at the words. He thought about the quiet distance he had noticed over the past few weeks, the late nights, the secretive calls, the phone tucked out of view. Now it all made sense. Amara's attention had shifted. Her heart had wandered. For the first time, Michael didn't just feel worry. He felt betrayal. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tear everything apart. But he didn't. Instead, he picked up the phone she had carelessly left charging on the nightstand. He scrolled. He found messages that spanned weeks. Laughing emojis, heart emojis, conversations that shouldn't have existed between her and someone else. His chest tightened. His hands trembled. He looked at Olivia, asleep and unaware, and a cold realization settled over him. She had been hiding pieces of her life from him for months. The woman he loved, the one who promised she was different, had secrets. Michael put the phone down. He couldn't confront her yet. He needed time to breathe, time to think. But deep down, he knew one thing. Love doesn't survive deception. And in the quiet darkness of their apartment, Michael understood that the life he thought he had with Olivia was already slipping away. By the time she woke up, everything between them would feel different. And Michael wasn't sure if anything could ever go back to the way it was. The night Michael decided to confront her wasn't planned. It was quiet, ordinary, a Thursday like any other. But everything in him had shifted. The weight of weeks spent in suspicion, the phone messages, the late-night calls, it all pressed on his chest until he could no longer breathe through the uncertainty. Olivia was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled when she saw him, oblivious to the storm inside him. Michael's hands were trembling, but his voice was steady. "Who is Ryan?" The question landed softly, almost polite, but the silence that followed was deafening. Olivia froze. Her eyes widened, her lips parted. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Michael, He held up a hand. "Don't." There are moments in life when words fail, when emotions are too heavy to unpack in the middle of a living room. This was one of those moments. "How long?" he asked, quieter this time. Her eyes filled with tears. "A few months." Michael's chest tightened. A few months. While he had been planning a future with her, while he had trusted her completely, while he had believed in every word, every promise. "Was I not enough?" His voice cracked slightly. "It wasn't about you," she whispered. But Michael already knew the truth. Betrayal isn't always loud. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, slowly, quietly, until it becomes impossible to ignore. He stepped closer. She reached out instinctively, but he stepped back. "I loved you," he said, voice breaking. "I still love you." She choked on her own words. "I still love you too." But love, he realized, doesn't erase what has been broken. Love doesn't undo the secrets. Love doesn't heal betrayal overnight. For a long moment, they stood in the room together. Two people who had once been inseparable, now strangers holding fragments of the life they had built. Michael looked at her, searching for the woman he had known, but all he found was uncertainty, guilt, and a truth too heavy to ignore. And in that silent living room, he understood something he had feared all along. Some things once broken can never be repaired. And with that thought, the quiet between them felt louder than any argument could have ever been. The truth, when it came out, was quieter than Michael had imagined, but heavier. Olivia sat on the couch, head bowed, fingers twisting in her lap. She wasn't defensive, she wasn't angry. She was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, morally. "It started harmlessly," she said, voice trembling. "It was just conversations, coffee breaks, someone noticing me when you were too busy to." Michael's heart sank further. He had prided himself on being present, on loving her the way she deserved. And yet, in the cracks between their golden moments, she had found someone else noticing what he didn't. "It was never meant to," she faltered, looking up at him. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. But one day, one late night at the office, boundaries disappeared." He listened in silence, his chest tightening with every word. He could see her regret, hear the sincerity, but he also felt the truth of her actions pressing down like a weight he couldn't lift. "They weren't just messages," she continued. "It was attention, validation, something I didn't realize I craved until I lost myself in it. I tried to stop. I wanted to focus on us. I swore I could control it. But..." Her voice broke, tears rolling freely now. Michael didn't interrupt. He didn't shout. He didn't scream. Because sometimes, understanding the truth is punishment enough. He thought about every small distance, every late night, every subtle shift that had whispered betrayal before it became undeniable. "It wasn't about love, Michael," she whispered finally, voice barely audible. "I never stopped loving you. I never stopped caring. But I was lonely in ways I didn't admit, and I let it happen." He stared at her, searching for the person he had loved so fiercely. She was there, and yet she wasn't. The apartment felt smaller now, the walls closer, the light harsher, the quiet between them suffocating. And as Michael absorbed the full weight of her confession, he realized that love alone wasn't enough to save them. Because sometimes the truth doesn't free you. Sometimes it binds you. And Michael knew in that moment that the choice he would soon have to make wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about whether he could ever trust her again. And deep down, he wasn't sure the answer would ever be yes. The breaking point came not with anger, but with unbearable quiet. Michael sat across from Olivia at the kitchen table. The evening sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the floor, across her face, across everything he had once loved about her. He looked at her, searching for the warmth he remembered. Instead, he found hesitation, guilt, and the weight of secrets she could no longer hide. "If I hadn't found out," he said softly, voice steady despite the trembling in his chest, "would you have told me?" Her hands froze. She swallowed, trying to speak, but no words came. Silence filled the room. It wasn't comfortable. It was sharp, cutting, unavoidable. "That's what I thought," he whispered, more to himself than to her. He wanted to scream. He wanted to shake her until the truth came out in something more than whispers. But he didn't, because some betrayals hurt most in silence. Olivia reached for him instinctively, as if she could bridge the chasm with her touch, but Michael pulled back. "Michael, she started, tears welling in her eyes. He shook his head. "Don't. I need to understand one thing first." And then he said the words that had haunted him since the first message. Did you ever stop loving me? Olivia's lips quivered. No, I still love you. Love isn't enough, he interrupted, his voice breaking. It's not enough when trust is gone, when promises are broken, when the person you shared your life with, your plans, your dreams, chooses someone else in secret. Her tears fell freely now. Michael took a deep breath. Every heartbeat felt like a hammer. Every memory they had shared, every laugh, every whispered "I love you" felt both sacred and shattered at once. I wanted us to survive, he said finally. I wanted to fix it. But how do you fix something you didn't see coming? Something you didn't want to stop? Olivia couldn't answer. And in that moment, Michael realized the truth he had been trying to avoid. Some choices can't be undone. Some love stories don't survive the breaking point. And with that, the room felt colder, heavier, and the life they had built together teetered on the edge of collapse. They didn't break up that night. There were no arguments, no shouting, no dramatic slamming of doors, just quiet, heavy, suffocating, impossible quiet. For weeks they tried, therapy, conversations, late-night talks where every word was measured, every sentence carefully chosen. But nothing bridged the distance that had grown between them. Every phone buzz, every late arrival, every distracted glance reminded Michael of the betrayal he could never unsee. One evening, he packed a small suitcase, not in anger, not in a rush, just methodically, carefully, as though each folded shirt was a step toward reclaiming himself. Olivia watched, tears streaming silently as the reality set in. "I don't hate you," Michael said softly, voice barely above a whisper. "I just can't live wondering anymore." Her sobs broke through. "Michael, please!" He shook his head. He wanted to stay, to argue, to promise that somehow things could be fixed, but he knew it was impossible. He walked to the door, suitcase in hand. The air between them felt electric, filled with memories, promises, and everything that could no longer be. And as Michael stepped into the hallway, leaving behind the life they had built together, both of them understood a painful truth. Sometimes love isn't enough to keep two people together. The door clicked softly behind him, and in that quiet sound, the chapter of their life as a couple ended. But the echoes of what they once shared would linger far longer than either of them could have imagined. Michael moved out quietly, carrying more than just a suitcase. He carried the weight of betrayal, the sting of heartbreak, and the memories of a love that had once felt unbreakable. His new apartment was smaller, bare, unfamiliar, but it was his. He focused on work, on rebuilding the pieces of himself that had been lost in sleepless nights and whispered lies. Slowly, he learned to breathe without constant suspicion, to sleep without a phone buzzing next to him, to live without wondering who she might be texting. Olivia ended things with Ryan shortly after Michael left. The thrill that had once seemed so intoxicating vanished in the stark light of reality. Without secrecy, without the danger, it felt ordinary, empty. She realized too late that what she had sought in him was never a substitute for the love she had taken for granted. Months passed. Life moved forward, though neither of them felt whole. One afternoon, Michael saw her at a grocery store. She was older, wearier, but the essence of her, the woman he had loved so fiercely, was still there. Their eyes met across the aisle, and for a moment, time stopped. Polite smiles, silent acknowledgement, strangers with history. They didn't speak. Some words, they realized, were unnecessary. The shared pain, the memories, and the lessons lingered in the spaces between them. Michael understood something essential. Trust, once broken, cannot simply be repaired with apologies. and Olivia understood that validation sought outside love is fleeting, and sometimes the cost is permanent. Life had moved on. The apartment was quiet again. The phone no longer buzzed with secrets, and Michael finally felt the faint stirrings of peace. But even in peace, the shadow of what had been and what could never be again lingered quietly, a reminder of love lost and lessons learned too late. Infidelity rarely begins with lust. It begins with silence, with neglect, with needs left unspoken, with distance slowly creeping between two people who once believed they were inseparable. Michael and Olivia had loved deeply, passionately, intentionally. They had believed their love was different, stronger, smarter, resistant to the fractures that destroy ordinary relationships. And yet, even the strongest love can falter when attention drifts, when hearts are left unseen, when validation is sought elsewhere. Betrayal does not erase love, it exposes its limits. It tests the foundation upon which trust is built. Some couples survive it, some do not. Michael learned that loving someone does not mean ignoring red flags, that protecting yourself is not the absence of love, but the presence of wisdom. Olivia learned that seeking connection outside of a bond comes at a cost far greater than momentary satisfaction. Sometimes, the most painful part of losing someone isn't the person themselves, it's the future you imagined together that will never exist. And as they each moved forward separately, one truth remained clear. Love requires more than emotion. It requires honesty, presence, consistency. And sometimes, even when love is real, it isn't enough. The silence Michael once feared now felt peaceful, because some endings, though painful, are necessary.